Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McCrae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Westley. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How's your week been? Have you been behaving yourself?
I have been behaving myself, and it's a lot in part to our new group. And I have been drinking so much more water. That's always been one of my goals and will always be a goal to maintain my water intake and increase it. But this week has been exceptionally well because of our group accountability that we've got going on now.
Yeah, I noticed myself. If I hadn't drunk enough water that day, thinking, oh gosh, as the leader of the group, it's going to be really embarrassing to post my data, so I'd better get drinking.
Yep, same. I always do better when someone else is watching. So it's been awesome. How about you? How have you been behaving yourself?
I have been behaving myself well. I don't know if I mentioned in a previous podcast, we had some DIY issues with the house with water pouring through the ceiling. And whenever things like that happen, I kind of go into survival mode and make things right and fix everything. And I'm superwoman for a week. And then when everything's fixed and things settle down, that's typically when my anxiety hits like a devil. And sure enough, here it came. But this time I had identified that this kind of thing is often a trigger. So I have been journaling this week, something I hate, but I've only cried once and I'm taking that as a win.
Yeah.
And I was in an ACT workshop, so an acceptance and commitment therapy workshop, and they made us really dig into emotions and do lots of mindfulness stuff. And half the people on the call were crying. So I'm taking it as a win.
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw that you journaled on your stories, and I was very proud because I know that's not always your top choice of activities to do, but it helps. And
it does. And I'm glad now that I am able to identify some of the triggers, like stressful periods and whatnot, and then know that I need to start journaling more before the anxiety gremlins come.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Get it in. Start doing it before it gets bad versus as a reactive strategy.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like the gremlins still come and they definitely still came, but it helps.
Good. Awesome. I'm so excited to talk about what we're talking about today.
Me too. I feel like you might be the really supportive behavior analytic one, and I might be the slightly sterner one of just do your job. But here goes. So we're talking about New Year's resolutions. Do we need to define what a New Year's resolution is? Does everybody know what a New Year's resolution is?
I'm sure everyone does, but we can always kind of touch on maybe what typically people do and what we're looking towards as a different approach to New Year's resolutions. So typically,
I
what
guess
do you do?
Maybe a resolution would be a rule-based contingency that you give yourself. So from the 1st of January, I will do X. I will no longer eat snacks after dinner. I will do 10 kilometers of running per day, whatever that might be. But that's a rule-based contingency that you set for yourself on a particular given date.
Yep. And as Joe's examples kind of showed, a lot of people do these very all or nothing New Year's resolutions, or they're very big and grandiose, and it's nowhere near where your current baseline level is. And we'll kind of dive deeper into it, but why it can be a bigger goal or resolution that you have, but these resolutions, and I think the word that we kind of look at differently is that resolute, and it's this big shift, and versus a goal has this very specific, like we talked about SMART goals, this very specific measurable time bound, whereas resolutions may be a little bit more vague, open-ended, no plan. And that's typically where most people, I think, tend to go, is this big life-changing shift in the way that they're going to do X, Y, or Z, in the way that they eat, in the way that they exercise, whatever it may be. And so it's a little bit more vague and open ended than we would typically write for goals.
And maybe for good reasons, really, in that they are seeing that it's the start of a new year. And in the last year that's just gone, they didn't be the person that they would most like to be. They're not living their most valued life. They're not living their best life. I hate that phrase. I always giggle when I say it. But they didn't become the person they were hoping to be. And so their resolution is the kind of big things that they think will get them to be that person, but must be so very different from the life they're currently living. It's just too much, too hard, too soon. So a more realistic way would be, I guess, what we're going to go into in this episode.
Yeah. And I think this year more than ever, there's going to be a lot of these big, resolute, life changing goals that people are setting because it's been such a challenging year for many, that so many people are going to want this different life in 2021. But is it going to be dramatically different at the start? Probably not. So bringing that into awareness as well.
Do you remember January 2020 when coronavirus was something that we were just seeing happen in Wuhan and wasn't really, like, it was just something we were interestingly watching on the news?
Yeah, I don't even know if I even knew about it at that point, but I don't even remember our New Year's. And we don't typically do much for New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. I remember working New Year's Day at the gym. So that's where I was.
Was it quiet or was it huge?
Oh, no. Busy, 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 busy. So busy. Wild and crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am not ashamed to say I was really hungover because I went out partying with Jim and his best friend and his wife, and it was great fun.
That's always fun. And I've been there. I've done that. And I mean, this year I knew I had to work at 7 a.m. So a little different. But I honestly, and I could probably scroll back in the archives of my Instagram and maybe find what I wrote for New Year's resolutions, but we don't typically make them a big thing. It's more I kind of reassess and evaluate what went well last year and then moving into this year, what I kind of wanted to focus on. And where do you remember what yours were? Or
I
did you
didn't have
set
any.
any?
No, I definitely didn't have any last year. I think the only New Year's resolution I have probably ever made over many years has been to get fitter and get healthier. And then the one year in particular that I made that New Year's resolution was because I just bought this house that I'm currently living in. So it must have been 2014, 2015 New Year's. And I'd hosted my mum and dad for Christmas here and looked at some of the photos from Christmas and was bigger than I'd been in quite a while. So after the huge amount of weight loss from going to obese to a healthy BMI, I think I had gotten comfortable. I'd done a lot of work on the house, so eating a lot of convenience style foods because I didn't have a kitchen, and the weight had slowly crept on. But I still thought I was within a healthy weight range. But looking back at the photos now, I definitely wasn't. I was probably around 12 stone, which is quite heavy for me. And so it was that New Year's that I made the resolution of, right, I'm going to find a sustainable way to stay healthy. And probably a lot of the different things that we're going to go through today, I did all of the things, and that's what's made it sustainable, of how to make a New Year's resolution and how to make it sustainable.
Good. And I think that's probably something that resonates with so many people, is that after the holidays, seeing those pictures or realizing that they don't want to be in the pictures and would rather be behind the camera or not in at all. Those are the things that are triggering how they're making their New Year's resolutions and those goals. And most of the time it is eat healthier, be more active, kind of these healthier focused goals versus I don't know, maybe like lifestyle goals of like, well, I'm not like setting this resolution to make sure that I clean my shower more often, which is one of my new goals because we're realizing that we just haven't been. So it's cleaning the shower. Yeah. It's, one of those things that wasn't on my goal list, but now is. So it doesn't have to be health and fitness and lifestyle.
Not at all. So someone's coming into the New Year's and they've decided that they do want to make a New Year's resolution. What's the first thing that they should do?
The first thing that I mean, there's many kind of different facets and ways of going about this. If they have the big goal of, I want to lose weight, right? That's going to be so many people's New Year's resolutions because we've got this whole blaming COVID, the COVID weight. I hear my clients say it all the time, and we're working on changing that. But what is your plan? Do you even have a plan? And most people are kind of coming, and we've talked about this emotional way of looking at goals, and having a plan puts it into this more logistical, systematic way of approaching the goal. And what is your 6-month plan? What is your 3-month plan? What is your 1-month plan? What steps are you going to take to get to that goal? Have you looked at those steps first before just diving in January 1st and saying, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week when you've been going 0 days a week?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to just start and go 7 days. And maybe you will for those first 7 days of January. And then we know how gyms work. They're super busy those first 15 to 20 days. And then everything trickles off. And there's a reason for that. So what do we do next?
So if we make a plan, I guess we plan into that plan realistic targets. So like you're saying, not going to the gym 7 times a week if you've previously never been to the gym, but maybe going for a walk for 10 minutes 3 times a week would be a more realistic plan to plan for. Looking at what you're currently doing. So maybe looking at some baseline data. I feel like we should get paid every time we say it.
There should be I don't know, somebody counting how many times, a little ding.
So maybe take some baseline data of what you're currently doing towards this current goal. Maybe it's nothing, and what you would find easy. And it's really tempting at the beginning to try and go big or go home, like have really huge ideals of what you'll do, but you're only going to burn out. It's something that my husband is terrible for. He will choose to maybe exercise twice a day, 6 days a week, and then he'll do that for 6 weeks, but then I'll have 2 weeks off. And I keep trying to instill in him, just 3 or 4 times a week is fine. Just once a day is fine. So getting a realistic, small, easy plan in place that you can build on over time. So do a week of the first plan and then add in an extra task, add in an extra walk, add in one workout or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And remember, you have 12 months if we're looking at this in yearly things, but you have this lifetime to build on this. This isn't a goal that you're going to hit by December 31st and then be done with. If it's this kind of lifestyle change that you're making, it's going to continue. You have time. You don't have to get there in the first month of this next year. And I think that's where many people are saying I need to get to it and then sustain it. But are you able to maintain that level, that 6 days a week, 2 times a day over multiple months and periods? Probably not. Gym's a great example.
And what I would much, much rather people do if it is weight loss being the plan, of building in habits that it's almost that the plan is to teach myself new behaviors and new habits rather than the weight loss itself. Because take it from someone who's been there. Weight loss isn't a destination. You don't get there and done. And you definitely don't get there and stay there. I've probably fluctuated 5 pounds in the past 2 weeks, from period weight to poo weight to water weight. It's not you get to X number of pounds and you're done. But the habits that you have, like eating vegetables every day, like moving your body, like making sure you eat protein regularly, all of those things, those are behaviors that will help you maintain a healthy weight long term.
Yeah. And like we've always said, losing weight is not a behavior.
It's also not that impressive. I'm sorry, it's not necessarily healthy. If you keep losing weight, that's not healthy, but the behaviors that might help you get to healthy weight, that's what's healthy. Eating well, moving well, all those things.
Yeah. I had a client who just sent me a message last night, and she just got a fitness tracker that she's using and seeing. It gives her points for movement. And she messaged me and said, I got those points, but I didn't even do that much. I was walking. It was just kind of daily life for her, but she got these move points, which shows its activity in relation to the level of intensity. So when we talked about moderate to vigorous intensity, so she gets points based on that. And she kind of felt defeated that she got it for something so minimal, but it was this remembering that this is her baseline, this is where you're at, and you're getting that reinforcement because you were moving. And that's the first step, is just getting moving. And then it's going to start getting harder to get those points. So remembering that it just needs to be sustainable, because if she were to go and try and get a higher, intensity workout in to get those points and feel like she earned them for real in her brain, it's not going to be sustainable. And so setting those small incremental steps for her goal is where we're at. And that's, I think, a very applicable thing to many people, is this concept of, you are where you're at right now, and that's okay. And making these big goals is great, but then also bringing it back down to what is sustainable daily. 2 times a day isn't sustainable for most people. There are some people that may be able to maintain, but that's very, very, very minimal.
It is. And physiologically, our bodies are really good at maintaining what is like homeostasis, so trying to stay the same. So whether it's doing loads of movement or whether it's losing loads of weight, your body's really good at trying to make you stop. Like, it likes being its current weight, it likes being its current activity level. So whether that's giving you muscle soreness to stop you from exercising the next day, or making you hungry because of your hunger hormones to make you eat more because you've lost a bit of weight, if you make these big changes, your body will do its very best to stop you. So it's almost better to make small incremental changes that change slowly over time, but you build on them long term, because then you'll have less fight against your body.
Mm-hmm. And as my husband always brings it back, is this evolutionary standpoint of your body is like, it is protecting you so that you have enough energy to go out and hunt the lion to get dinner that night. Our bodies don't understand that, like, we can exercise and it's okay, and we can exert that much energy and not need to reserve it to be able to go out and hunt later, because we can go to the store. But that's naturally and evolutionary how our bodies are wired, is to protect us and conserve our energy so that we can go out and hunt the lion, which we're not doing. So, but those small steps, it's small, it's incremental. So we've set a big goal, and how long has it lasted in the past for many people? Kind of like we said, probably not past 3 weeks to maybe a month or so.
I should have looked up the data on this. The data does exist.
No.
I think it's something like February the 11th that like 90% of people have given up on it. It's something like that.
At least, yeah, the end of February would probably be the longest most have lasted, I would assume.
Actually, I did do a New Year's resolution last year. I gave up alcohol for the whole of January, and it wasn't until February 14th on Valentine's Day night that I remembered that I hadn't yet drunk, which is so unusual for me. So yeah, I did do a New Year's resolution last year and smashed it.
Good.
Thanks.
And, I think that's an interesting point too, is the resolution doesn't have to be for that whole year. It can be this like short-term goal that you have moving into this next month. It really is just a next point in time that we use these arbitrary markers in time to make goals. I mean, new months, people are like, okay, it's a new month. And you sometimes just need this fresh start, this new leaf to turn over. And that's sometimes just what we need in our brain. It's like somebody starting a goal on Wednesday, they get really thrown off. They're like, but I'm just going to start on Monday. I'm just going to start that in the new year. And that's where our group is coming in. Nice little segue of, you can start these goals and these habits and these behaviors without this arbitrary marker in time of the first of the month, the first of the week, the first of the year. But we do tend to gravitate towards those.
Yeah, for sure. And I think thinking back to last year and giving up alcohol, it was an easy one for me to do. It's January, we didn't have any parties, we didn't have any celebrations, no weddings, etc. So chances of social drinking happening were really low. We made sure that we had lots of really fun non-alcoholic drinks in the house. So replacement behaviors. We don't tend to go out a huge amount anyway, but particularly not in January. So I think the reason why I wasn't kind of gagging for a drink come the 1st of February was because we made it so easy on ourselves. It was just not drinking alcohol. We made sure we didn't have delicious alcohol in the fridge or visible. We made all of the little small changes so that it was easy to maintain. And actually, then it did change our behavior for the rest of the year, where previously we could have, say, shared 2 or 3 bottles of wine a week with dinner, whatever. We probably now have 1 bottle of wine a week. So it kind of readdressed our levels of alcohol consumption throughout the whole year. So it was a good thing to do. And even, as Emily said, even if you only do a New Year's resolution for 1 month, it then might have some nice knock-on effects for the rest of your year.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. It can lead into, and like we've said, if you start working on one behavior, it may begin to affect other actions, other habits indirectly and not as a planned behavior change. So I think for many people, it's this question of, well, how do I sustain it past February 11th? Is that what you said? Around that time?
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
It's how do we maintain it? And we need to, like we said, have a plan. But there's something called in behavior analysis, this concept of component and composite analysis. And so it's taking this bigger goal and breaking it down into what are the requirements or kind of these prerequisite skills that need to be able to be done in order to get to the next behavior, in order to build on this whole big habit or resolution or goal that you're setting. So for our clients with weight loss, mine in particular, I have a client who, when I met her, she didn't even know how to track her food intake and what that looked like and how to measure it and how to maybe input it into MyFitnessPal. So those were skills that we needed to work on before. And obviously it was going to start contributing to her losing weight naturally, but we were not focused on her weight loss. We weren't looking at her weight as a number. It was the skills of looking at the food, the types of food she was eating, tracking her water. And that was those little component skills that needed to be learned before she could get into these bigger goals. And now she's tracking every day. We're making sure that measurements are more accurate now. But in the beginning, it was just learning to measure it and input it. And maybe they weren't quite 100% accurate, but now they are. But it's these little skills that maybe you need to look at. Are you able to track your water? Are you able to measure out food if that's what you need to do? Are you able to know what foods have certain nutrients and looking at those and learning how to read food labels? That's a component skill. If you don't know how to look for how much added sugar is in something, that's going to affect your goals and your habits and your behaviors.
Perfect. Yeah, super. And then I guess making those smaller goals for yourselves within time. So what's your 1 month goal, 3 month goal, 6 month goal, and making them realistic. So, and we keep referring back to weight loss in this episode, not because we think it's particularly important, but because it's a lot of people's resolution for New Year's. So if it's weight loss, a realistic target would be 0.5 to 1.5% of your body weight. That's quite a big range, but it depends on how big you are to begin with. So if you are relatively heavy, 1% of your body weight per week is quite a reasonable target. Whereas for someone who is smaller, 1% would be a huge amount of weight. A lot of people say £1 a week, but again, that depends on how big you currently are. But even so, £1 a week or £1 a fortnight is a realistic target to hit for. If you try and give yourself a goal of £10 a week, you are going to fail within the first month, because you'll probably lose £10 in the first week and then nothing in the next week. And then you'll feel sad and you'll give up anyway. So make it realistic, make it small.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is make it realistic. Sit down and break it down. Like sit and look at your year and say, okay, where do I want to be in 6 months? Okay, what are the steps I need to take to get there? Where do I want to be in 3 months? What are the steps that I need to get there? And if you're still sitting here after listening to this episode and you really still are not sure of how to break down your own goals or what that looks like, Joe and I are great resources. Reach out to us. Also, if you leave a review, you can win a free 30-minute session with us, and that's something we can help you break down. Nice little shameless plug there, but it tied in really nicely.
Not shameless at all.
So, or talking with somebody who you trust and saying, okay, I have this goal, but I just really don't know where to go with it or how to break it down. What are your thoughts? They may be able to just see it from an outside perspective. And sometimes we're so ingrained in our own thoughts and behaviors that we can't see from the outside what those look like. So ask for help, reach out. We are available.
Get
So with
accountable.
that,
Yeah.
where can they find us, Joe?
They can find me at The Behaviour Lady on Instagram. Remember, behaviour is spelt with a U because I'm still British. Emily can be found at emily.a.mcrae, so MACRAE on Instagram. Our podcast Instagram is at Behave Yourself Pod.
Mm-hmm. And
You can also email us at behaveyourselfpod@gmail.com.
Yes. She says that with question marks at the end.
Every time. Anywhere else they can find us. I think that was all of them.
And as we've said, you guys are still able to join the Facebook group. We are working on group accountability, setting goals, recording the data, sharing our data. And it's just a way to connect, gain accountability, have people in your corner that are here to support you starting before New Year's comes.
But I guess if you're listening to this after New Year's, all of the things that we'll have put up there, all of the resources and documents and whatnot will still be there, so you can scroll back. And like we suggested in this podcast, we're doing one target a week. This week has been how to drink more water. Next week is eat more vegetables. And day on day, we're building on these skills and composite skills step by step, little by little. So you can always scroll back through the days or weeks or months, depending on when you're listening to this, and go back and do it yourself. And a huge part of staying accountable is having support, and that group will give you that support.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Okay, a quick disclaimer from me. We are both behaviour analysts and qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical, or behavioural advice or services.
Look at that. Beautifully said. Alrighty. So next time we're going to talk about, is comparison the thief of joy?
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.